Over 60? Discover 4 surprising carbs to avoid and 4 amazing ones to transform your health. Margaret's fingers trembled as she clicked on the article. The flashing headlines seemed to mock her, yet beneath the raucous promises of transformation, she felt the weight of her own reality creeping in. How could she ever navigate health when just last week she had been firmly seated at the table piled high with homemade cookies? The bright frosting shimmered, memories spilling forth of laughter, her grandchildren's faces smeared with sugary delight. But those moments now felt distant, blurry like fading photographs. There was urgency hidden within the text, a hidden truth she sensed was waiting, something that could shatter her world. She swallowed hard, faced with the unrelenting fear that her indulgent habits might not only lead to her health unraveling, but spell disaster for those she held dear. Driving home from the doctor's office, her thoughts raced. The stern warnings still echoed in her mind. Dangerously high blood sugar levels, the need to rethink everything, especially the tempting carbs that had brought families together for generations. This was not just about her, it was about Harry, her ailing husband, who needed her strong and capable. Panic bubbled unsettled in her stomach as she examined the fragile lines between nostalgia and necessity. What would she replace the loves of her culinary life with? Would her family still gather at her table if the food changed? Before she could spiral deeper into the chaos, she spotted a flyer at the local community center for nutrition classes curated by Claire, a nutritionist known for her holistic approach. Intrigued yet apprehensive, Margaret dwelled on the idea of stepping foot into that world. What if it overwhelmed her? What if she couldn't let go of the familiar comfort of her classic recipes? What if she failed to convince Jake, her son, to try this new way of life as he battled his own health demons? Her chest tightened at that thought, a storm of shame and worry crashing against her resolve to create change. The flutter of her phone jolted her out of her reverie. It was a text from Jake. "Hey Mom, just thinking about that cookie recipe you always make for us. Those are the best." A part of her ached with warmth. These memories intertwined with her nutrition journey, casting shadows of doubt over what she knew had to be done. Would he understand if she tried to shift their traditions toward healthier habits? Would they all cling to the past or allow new opportunities to grow? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With Claire's guidance swirling in her mind, flickers of hope ignited, whole grains, vibrant veggies, nourishing choices. Yet every step she took felt like she was hacking through the intertwined vines of fear and guilt. The aromas of those cherished baked goods hung heavy in the air, seducing her to draw back toward her known comfort. Anxiety tightened its hold, her breaths turning shallow as she weighed the risk of standing firm in her newfound convictions. What if she alienated Jake when balancing their history with change? The risks of her choices loomed large, and in her kitchen, filled with the warmth of memories, Margaret faced a daunting truth. She breathed in the sweet scent of the past, ready to take that leap, even if the ground beneath felt unsteady. Tomorrow would demand an answer. Would she challenge a lifetime of tradition, or tread lightly through the familiar chaos? Margaret awoke the next morning with the sun streaming through the kitchen window, illuminating the remnants of her past glories, the cookie tins, the mixers, and the sweet scent of vanilla still lingering in the air. For a moment, she was lulled back into the comfort of those familiar days, but then the stark reality of her doctor's visit rushed back. Today would not be just another ordinary day. It was the beginning of her journey. The empty space on the countertop where her mixer usually resided felt like a barren landscape. With shaky hands, she flipped through Claire's nutrition pamphlet. Each word leapt off the page, shouting for her attention. Whole grains, fiber-rich vegetables, and the benefits of cooking for clarity and health. But, alongside it, her mind served up a silent cacophony of doubts. Could she really embrace this lifestyle? As she prepared her breakfast, her movements were mechanical. Eggs seemed like such a departure from her signature blueberry muffins. She cracked them into a skillet, whites bubbling like her rising unease. A twinge of guilt swept over her as she imagined Jake's face upon learning of her new dietary endeavors. Was she ready to share not just the food, but a whole new way of life with him? After breakfast, nerves zipping through her like live wires, she decided to confront them head-on. With determination wedged between her ribs, she texted Claire, "Can we meet today?" The response was swift. They would meet in the afternoon. Margaret spent the hours leading up to their meeting in a swirl of restless energy. She began sorting through her pantry, scrutinizing the ingredients that defined her cooking over the years. Each can and bottle a link to her identity. Throwing open the cupboard doors felt like breaking through the shackles of complacency. She could see the ingredients twisted together: sugars, refined flours, the remnants of unhealthy habits. Change demanded confrontation, and if Margaret was going to challenge her traditions, she needed to take stock of her life. At her meeting with Claire, she sat across from a woman brimming with enthusiasm. "Let's talk about your goals," Claire prompted, her voice soothing yet probing. Margaret hesitated, but then found herself confessing, "I'm scared I'm losing everything that made my family, my family. Can I really change what has always been there?" Claire's gaze anchored Margaret, as if she could sense the whirlpool of anxiety threatening to pull her under. "Change starts small, Margaret. What if we find ways to entwine tradition with health? You could reinvent those recipes? Think of it not as loss, but as opportunity." The idea presented was illuminating. Could she mark this as evolution rather than extinction? The moment sparked a thought deep within her, a resolve. A deep part of her recognized that health transcended nostalgia. "You need to show them how exciting health can be," Claire continued. "It's about togetherness, not separation." Walking home, Margaret felt lighter, buoyed by a burgeoning determination. The incremental shifts her family needed could revolve around joy instead of fear, connection rather than disconnection. The possibility danced through her mind. She could invite Jake over for a cooking trial run this weekend. They could create new traditions while staying rooted in the love of shared meals. Back in her kitchen, Margaret began drafting a plan, jotting down simple recipes that echoed the flavors of her cherished dishes but substituted healthier ingredients. The trepidation still lingered, but now it was fueled with excitement rather than dread. Would Jake embrace the challenge, or would the nostalgia of their past cooking push him away? Those questions swirled as she prepared a new dish, her heart pounding with uncertainty. As the hours ticked down to their cooking session, she felt the tension rise. Would she succeed in her mission to bridge the gap between old and new? It was time to step further into this journey. Her thoughts oscillated between hope and doubt, aware of the potential confrontation awaiting her. The time had come to face her family's legacy and redefine it, all while fearing what might arise. As she arranged her plan for tomorrow, Margaret couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning, a chapter not yet written, teetering between the old and the unknown. Could she embrace the new while honoring the memories? The moment of truth was just around the corner, and she was determined to find out. The morning light filtered softly through the still-stacked cookbooks, illuminating the scattered notes Margaret had scribbled on recipes. Each page represented a delicate balance between her culinary history and the healthier future she was striving to create. Yet despite the rhythm of her progress, her heart thudded with impatience, a drumbeat urging her forward. As the evening approached, Margaret took a deep breath, preparing herself for Jake's arrival. She had always seen cooking as a way to connect, a ritual woven with love and familiar flavors. Tonight, however, there would be a marked shift. healthier ingredients, fresh perspectives, and a conversation that could alter the foundation of their relationship with food. The kitchen exuded a fragrant bouquet from the handful of herbs and vegetables she had prepared, but beneath the aroma, tension crackled. The chopping board felt foreign as she replaced flour with almond meal and sugar with ripe bananas. Each decision felt monumental, a small rebellion against the past. Yet a whisper of doubt clawed at her, taunting her with the fear of rejection, capable of tearing down the careful edifice she was attempting to construct. As Jake walked in, the door creaked, a sound that heralded a world of comfort she'd created and now sought to redefine. His arms opened wide, and she stepped into the familiar embrace, but the hugs felt momentarily hollow. Would this newfound culinary path push him away or draw him in? "Whoa! What's that smell?" he asked, sniffing the air. There was genuine intrigue mingling with the hint of uncertainty. "Just something new I wanted to try," she replied, her voice firm yet tremulous. "I thought we could experiment together." The invitation hung in the air, suspended between hope and anxiety. Jake's brow furrowed as he surveyed the ingredients. "What about your famous mac and cheese? Or those chocolate chip cookies?" They were sacred rituals in their kitchen, recipes etched into their hearts. "I want to show you that healthy can still be delicious. We can adapt our favorites." Margaret's voice broke slightly, revealing her vulnerability. "I want to blend our history with a healthier future." A silence thickened. She could feel his hesitation mirrored in her own uncertainty. Faced with this moment, a spark of resolve ignited within her. They needed to step into this unknown together, to open a dialogue surrounding the transformation of their cherished meals into something that illuminated their love for both each other and their well-being. She began working with measured precision, her hands moving with newfound purpose. With each chop and stir, she sensed Jake's gaze lingering on her, an investigator in an experiment. Margaret's mind whirled with questions, balancing between hope and fear. Would they rediscover joy in this new path, or would it become a bitter fight against nostalgia? "Try this," she offered, as she plated their savory vegetable stir-fry, an amalgamation of tastes, colors, and textures that stood in stark contrast to their past meals. The moment weighed heavily in the air, and she found herself holding her breath, anxious for his response. He twirled the fork, bringing it tentatively to his mouth. The seconds stretched, each heartbeat echoing the uncertainty of the transition they were embarking upon. Finally, Jake chewed slowly, a thoughtful look crossing his face. "It's different," he said carefully, jaw working as he processed the flavors. But different could be good. Margaret's heart soared slightly, but she didn't dare indulge in elation yet. They were still negotiating the unsettling terrain of change. "You think so? We can modify things further, make it more together," she replied, searching his eyes for reassurance. A smile flickered across his lips, but the distance in his expression remained. "I just miss the comfort of the old recipes sometimes." His honesty struck with unwelcome force, a reminder of the precarious balance they were navigating. Margaret's heart sank momentarily as she considered the truth of his words hovering there, a precarious acknowledgement that their journey together might be clouded by shadows of the past. Yet her resolve deepened. "If we just cling to what we know, we'll never discover something new," she challenged gently, feeling the surge of determination. "Let's create a legacy that honors both." In that moment, Margaret recognized an opportunity stirring within her. This wasn't just about food anymore. It was about redefining the very essence of their connection, forging a new tradition in the process. She could feel the future unfolding, yet doubt loomed overhead like storm clouds threatening sunlight. As they continued to eat and the conversation evolved, she found herself on the cusp of yet another revelation. Could this endeavor be a bridge to something bigger than her culinary craft? A way to navigate through the complexities of change, to trim the excess, crafting a healthier narrative for both themselves and their future? Once again, she was at a crossroads, wrestling with doubt while feeling on the brink of transformation. The notion that this was not just an adjustment to ingredients, but an exploration of what it meant to grow together, rooted in love, propelled her forward. Unbeknownst to her, the night would open up a wider chasm of understanding, revealing more than just the flavors on their plates. Would they leap into this new world together, or would the fear of losing familiarity fracture their bond? Tomorrow would bring clarity, but it was a thought laced with the anticipation of possibility, the hope of growth, and the stark reality of what might still unfold. Margaret awoke to the soft hum of morning light washing over her kitchen, a stark contrast to the internal storm brewing within her. Last night's dinner had been a mixture of hope and hesitation, but as she moved through her morning routine, the uncertainty lingered. She needed to focus on her mission, the vision for their future, one where healthy food could bridge the gap between memories and aspirations. The cluttered countertops served as a reminder of the previous evening's challenges. Her fingers brushed the spines of the cookbooks like a battering ram against the doubts still echoing in her mind. She felt the weight of Jake's words about missing their favorite recipes, which twisted her heart into a knot. But what if she could harness this adversity? What if this shift could evolve into something even more profound? Margaret began to write in a fresh notebook, one dedicated solely to her culinary journey. The pages filled with sketches of meal plans and ingredients, vivid colors reflecting her vision of a vibrant table spread with food that nourished both body and soul. As she wrote, a sudden thought sparked in her mind. Could she host a cooking class? A way to share her reimagined recipes and welcome others into the transformative space she was carving out. The idea sent a rush of excitement coursing through her veins, and she immediately started drafting a proposal. Margaret envisioned an intimate gathering where participants could learn to adapt comfort foods to healthier versions, a concept that not only honored nostalgia but also embraced change. This was not merely about food anymore. It was about crafting a community around wellness and resilience. Yet the idea of sharing her journey with others forced her to confront her insecurities. What if no one was interested? What if she stumbled while teaching? The thought curled like smoke around her aspirations. But then she recalled the moment of taste during dinner and how Jake had reacted to her stir-fry. Different could be good, he had said. She had felt a flicker of hope, a signal that maybe her perspective was valid. Could she cultivate that same energy within a small group? Yet the fear of stepping outside her comfort zone tugged at her. Would her vision resonate? Would Jake support her in this endeavor? She thought about how their relationship had expanded with their culinary journey. Perhaps inviting others into this process could strengthen their bond even further. Determined, Margaret took it upon herself to challenge her fears head-on. She spent the day organizing her thoughts. Each note became more than just a plan. It morphed into an affirmation that she was capable of leading this culinary evolution. She structured the class outline, emphasizing hands-on experience, showcasing the flexibility of ingredients, and encouraging each participant to bring their personal stories into the kitchen with them. By evening, she felt a current of clarity enveloping her like a warm embrace, a stark contrast to the uncertainty that had shadowed her before. Arranging to meet Jake, she crafted a simple dish that intertwined flavors reminiscent of the past but anchored in the promise of their new, healthier path. As dinner progressed, she carefully broached the subject. "I've been thinking about hosting a cooking class, a way to share what we're doing here and invite others into our journey." The words tumbled out, heavy with delicate intent. Jake paused, a forkful of quinoa halting mid-air, his brow furrowing in concentration. A cooking class? With other people? The astonishment in his voice echoed her own insecurity, and she quickly added, "It can help others get excited about nourishing meals just like we are." His hesitation loomed large, but Margaret was undeterred. With each word exchanged, she sensed layers peeling back, revealing deeper vulnerabilities within both of them. "I want to create something beautiful, Jake. Together. It's about community, and it's about growth." As they continued their discussion, Margaret's heart raced, afraid that this venture might unveil more than just culinary secrets. It could expose underlying fears that ran deeper than food. Incorporating others might change things, he finally said, his eyes searching her face. What if they don't connect to it like we do? What if it highlights our struggles instead? Margaret took a deep breath, confronting the possibility that lurking beneath their passion for food was the fear of vulnerability, the fear of exposing their journey for others to see. What they will see is growth, Jake. Our growth. And isn't that worth the risk? Each word carried the weight of her determination. As silence enveloped them, Margaret wondered if she would have the courage to embrace this new chapter, not just professionally but personally as well. Was she ready to share her journey, to stand in front of others and guide them while still grappling with her insecurities? Tomorrow promised a decision, a leap into the unknown that could reshape everything. The path ahead was fraught with questions and uncertainties, but one thought anchored her. This venture was yet another stepping stone to rediscovering not just who she was in the kitchen, but who she was becoming in life. Margaret awoke the next morning. The sunlight splashing through the kitchen window offered warmth, but also clarity. The night's conversation with Jake replayed in her mind, a loop of anxiety and anticipation. Today's decision loomed ahead, massive and empowering. She moved through her routine mechanically, the clattering dishes echoing her internal conflict. While preparing her morning coffee, she strategically dropped coffee grounds, watching them settle like the doubt swirling within her. Today would be different, she told herself as she set down her cup with a resolve she hadn't felt in a while. The fear that had lingered like an unwanted guest began to shift into a challenge she had to conquer. Margaret knew she could not waver before her decision to host the cooking class. With a determined breath, she pulled out her notebook, the pages filled with potential. Each line brought forth a resolution. She would start with 5 participants, inviting them into her world of healthier living. It was an intimate number, enough to build a connection, but small enough to contain her anxiety. She envisioned the space, the kitchen alive with chatter, laughter, and the aroma of spices. Every knife slice an affirmation, every sauté an act of courage. But as she sketched plans for the first class, layers of doubt began to rise again. What would they think? Would it feel authentic to them? Margaret automatically found herself drafting an email, a quick intro to her cooking class concept, but her fingers lingered, hovering uncertainly above the keyboard. Recognizing the moment as a crucial junction, she took a deep breath and leaned back in her chair. It was time to face her fear once again, not only of failure, but of connection. She couldn't unravel the intricacies of her journey alone. She decided to call her best friend, Claudia. They had navigated life's ups and downs together for years, sharing aspirations and fears over countless cups of coffee. "Hey, Claudia, I'm thinking of starting a cooking class," Margaret blurted, her voice wobbling, fragile but eager. The supportive enthusiasm in Claudia's voice felt like an anchor. "What a brilliant idea. You've always wanted to share your passion," Claudia encouraged, and Margaret felt a flicker of reassurance. They dove into the logistics together, the layout of the kitchen, the recipes to teach. Claudia's energy was contagious, sparking inspiration in Margaret she hadn't anticipated. Yet as the conversation flowed, insecurities crept back in, intertwining with excitement. "But what if I make a mistake, like burn the food, or worse, fail to engage them?" The dread lingered, and the weight of exposing herself to scrutiny returned, heavier than before. Claudia reminded her of past successes. "You're natural in the kitchen, and you have so many great ideas. Remember when you made that coconut curry for my birthday? Everyone loved it." The positive affirmation stirred something deep within Margaret. She realized it wasn't just about instructing others. It was about her own growth, unraveling her vulnerabilities and laying claim to her passion. With newfound conviction, she pressed her fingers against the keyboard once more and began to draft the email. Each sentence carried the weight of her bold step forward. She sent it off, her pulse racing as she hit send. "One step at a time, Margaret," she whispered to herself. By evening, she prepared to meet Jake again. The air felt charged with potential, and she sensed a shift in her resolve. She arranged the table, bringing forth colors that reflected her vibrant aspirations, recalling the flavors she'd share in the class. When Jake walked in, she greeted him with a warmth that belied her earlier fears. I sent out the invitation for the class today, she said, a small smile curling at the edges of her mouth. His expression changed, a mixture of surprise and amusement. You did? Just like that? Yes, just like that, she affirmed, her voice steady. But beneath that resolve, a wave of trepidation crashed over her. How would he respond to her decision now that it was real? Would he embrace this view of their evolving culinary journey, or would it amplify his insecurities about exposing their private lives? As dinner began, while the meal disappeared slowly from their plates, Margaret realized that this moment was merely the introduction to a much larger narrative unfolding. The kitchen felt alive with possibility, but she couldn't ignore the tightening of her stomach, the uncertainties wrapped around her intentions. The conversation drifted toward light banter, but Margaret sheltered profound thoughts lurking in the background, each one pulsing with unaddressed anxiety and anticipation of the upcoming class. Should she press for deeper feelings about her new venture, or let it simmer, allowing Jake to express what he felt in his own time? Tomorrow, when the responses to her invitation arrived, would make all the difference. Each notification could either stretch the boundaries of her resilience or press her deeper into uncertainty. The pivotal moment loomed ahead. Could she handle the truth of their aspirations, or would fear stifle their growth? Margaret woke up the next morning with a palpable tension in her chest. The day she had both anticipated and dreaded had arrived. Responses to her cooking class invitation would soon pop up in her inbox. It was like standing at the edge of a cliff, the wind whipping through her hair as she weighed the leap into the unknown against the comfort of staying put. She needed to shift her perspective. As the sun filtered through the curtains, she slipped into her exercises, determined to channel her nerves into something productive. With each stretch, she reflected on her decision. This wasn't just about teaching others, it was about forging her identity as a culinary leader. She made a mental note to embrace that identity, one step at a time. After a quick breakfast that felt more substantial than usual, Margaret retreated to the living room, her laptop open before her. Each notification sound felt like a heartbeat, quickening her pulse. But rather than succumb to anxiety, she turned her focus inward. A fundamental question persisted. What did she hope to achieve beyond sharing recipes? The class was a vehicle for her growth, a means to cultivate confidence, self-expression, and connections. That realization hit like a wave, washing away some of her fear. She needed to seek clarity on her goals, not just content herself with doing well. What sort of cooking class would she want to attend? How could she make it enriching not only for her participants, but for herself too? Inspired, she made a list. Each lesson would not just impart knowledge about healthy cooking. They would be a journey exploring flavors, techniques, and shared experiences. She envisioned interactive sessions where participants would share their culinary secrets and dislikes, creating a communal atmosphere. She would be their guide, not merely their teacher. With renewed determination, she began drafting a lesson plan, allowing her creativity to flow. She felt more like an artist, each dish a canvas awaiting vibrant strokes of flavor. By lunchtime, she had laid out the class structure, each week focusing on a different element of cuisine, each built on the mantra of joy and health. Suddenly, her phone chimed. A response. Swallowing hard, she opened the email, scanning quickly for signatures. The first was Jake, his voice clear through the words. I think this is such a beautiful idea, Margaret. I'd love to support you however I can. Relief mingled with affection, but it didn't stop her from questioning the authenticity of his support. Was he truly on board, or merely placating her? As more responses trickled in, her heart swelled. 5 slots, fully booked, and an overflow of encouragement paired with enthusiasm flooded her screen. Each participant brought initials to a dream she was about to realize, affirmations rippling through her. It forced her to confront her previous concerns. Was she really capable of leading? The weighty pause gripped her. This empowered version of herself was tremulous, teetering on the brink of a scrutinizing audience. Yet, as she responded to her newly minted participants with excitement, she felt something begin to shift internally. Her voice was chock full of encouragement for others to join her journey, but she needed that same investment in herself. Later that day, as she chopped vegetables for dinner, each slice methodical, each color vibrant, she thought about her newfound responsibility. This class was an opportunity to solidify her passions. Feeling ready to articulate her vision, she decided that it was the perfect time to share this journey with Jake. He had stood by her through thick and thin, and she needed his insight, his perspective. When Jake arrived that evening, she could sense a change in the atmosphere, like an electrifying current dancing between them. It was more than just the food. It was the recognition of vulnerability intermixed with excitement. After serving dinner, she hesitated, but the swell of confidence from her day nudged her forward. "Jake, I want to share something with you," she began, aiming for forthrightness. "I really believe in what I'm doing with the class, and I want you to understand why it matters to me." His eyes lit up with interest, and Margaret realized she would need to lay bare her vision, exposing her triumphs and fears to deepen their connection amid her expanding dream. As they navigated this critical discourse, she couldn't shake off the nagging question that gripped her heart. Would he embrace her ambitions, or would this journey create a rift between them, challenging not just her class, but their relationship? The stakes felt higher than ever. Just as their conversation reached a crescendo, her phone vibrated again, a new notification buzzing with the promise of potential. It was a formal invitation to collaborate on a local food blog, an unexpected opportunity, a challenge to further commit to her path. Margaret's heart raced. The moment of truth was before her, a litmus test of vulnerability and ambition. She stood at a crossroads, her resolve solid but untested. Would she step into this new sphere of influence, or retreat back to the comfort of routine? The choice loomed, potent and exhilarating, and Margaret knew the answer would redefine her trajectory, for better or worse. Margaret stared at her phone, the invitation to collaborate on the food blog glowing back at her like a beacon. The sudden influx of possibilities left her breathless. This was more than just a project. It was a chance to amplify her voice in the culinary world, to connect with a broader audience while still nurturing her class. But with the potential came palpable fear. Could she juggle the demands of a blog alongside her cooking classes? Would this push her to a breaking point, or offer the empowerment she craved? She sensed Jake watching her, the weight of his gaze amplifying her internal turmoil. What would he think of her pursuing yet another commitment? Yet she promised herself that this wouldn't be just about him. It was her journey, a reflection of personal growth she desperately wanted to cultivate. "Are you okay?" he asked, probing gently. Margaret inhaled sharply, her mind racing. "I just received an invitation to collaborate on a food blog. It feels like an incredible opportunity, but I'm not sure if I can manage it all." Jake leaned closer, his brows furrowing in thought. "Do you really want to do it? If you're passionate about it, I say go for it. Just think about how much this can help your class and expand your reach." His support should comfort her, yet it sent tremors through her resolve. The doubts nagged at her. Am I ready for this? This is just the start of something bigger. Do I dare? Margaret forced herself to think beyond the moment. She had devoted countless hours to refining her kitchen skills, embracing a love for the culinary arts that fed her spirit. The idea of sharing her experiences through a blog felt natural, but it also held risks, vulnerability and judgment from readers who might not understand her vision. "What if I don't have enough to say?" she questioned, dissecting her concerns out loud. "What if I'm just mimicking others? I've never written in a public space before. What if they tear my insights apart?" Jake's expression softened as he rebutted. "You're not like them, Margaret. You have a unique perspective. This could actually help others. Think of it as sharing your journey, your passion. And remember, it will evolve as you grow. Everyone starts somewhere. She weighed his words, feeling a flicker of excitement overshadowing her inhibition. Writing had once been an escape, a way for her to articulate her thoughts without inhibition. Why should this be any different? It was her chance to cultivate her identity both in the kitchen and beyond, and even to enable others to share their culinary escapades alongside hers. Margaret's fingers hovered over the phone screen as she contemplated her response. Did she accept and commit to this new project, simultaneously expanding her brand and nurturing her classes? The risks felt enormous, yet her dreams seemed tantalizingly close. "Okay, I think I'll do it," she finally declared, a wave of resolve accompanying her decision. "I'm going to say yes, but I know I need to carve out time to make this work alongside everything else." Jake nodded, his eyes reflecting pride. "That's the spirit! Just remember to set boundaries. You don't want to overwhelm yourself." Those words hung in the air as realization dawned on her. Boundaries. So much of her fear stemmed from the thought of not being able to manage it all. Perhaps this was the lesson she desperately needed, the fine balance between passion and equilibrium. The lesson didn't lie merely in culinary arts, but in her ability to navigate multiple identities without losing herself in the process. As they settled back into lighter conversation, Margaret felt the threads of pre-existing tension begin to unravel. Each commitment she took on felt more like a chance to explore her limits rather than a burden. The promise of the blog ignited a thrill that mingled with fears and aspirations she hadn't articulated until now. Yet, even as her excitement surged, a question remained unanswered, lurching ominously in the back of her mind. Would expanding her commitments dilute her effectiveness, or would it empower her voice? This query lingered like a shadow, hinting at complications lurking beyond her newfound assurance. That night, Margaret surrendered to the evening's quiet, while the faint hum of her ambitions buzzed around her. The decision felt heavy and exhilarating simultaneously. She would need to prepare for inquiries and potential critiques that followed her blog post. With her territory expanding, she might arouse attention she wasn't entirely prepared for. As she mulled over her next steps, she recalled Jake's earlier support. Regardless, the uncertainty loomed larger with every tick of the clock, propelling her deeper into introspection. Just as she contemplated her strategy for the blog, her phone chimed again, a fresh response waiting on the screen. This one was from an old acquaintance, a professional chef exploring, of all things, collaborative opportunities. The stakes were rising. Would they clash, or could this be a positive partnership? Margaret's heart raced once more. The next turn was just around the corner, and she was on the brink of a calculated risk. The path ahead twisted with promises of growth and the fear of failure intertwined. Would she handle the delicate balance of professional relationships as deftly as she did cooking techniques? The self-imposed expectation pressed down on her as she prepared for the journey ahead, igniting an internal fire for the next step. She had to confront this challenge, or risk losing the momentum she had finally cultivated. But crucially, there was no going back. The moment of truth lay ahead, an embrace of the unknown that would ultimately reveal her true strength. Margaret's mind reeled with anticipation as she stared at the message from her old acquaintance Ian. They hadn't spoken in years, but memories of their culinary rivalry flooded back. Hasty competitions, passionate discussions, and a sense of urgency to prove oneself in the kitchen. But now, as she recalled those times, a mixture of excitement and dread settled in. What did Ian want? Taking a deep breath, she opened the message, her fingers trembling slightly. Ian proposed a dual collaboration on a series of videos aimed at novice cooks looking to enhance their skills. He wanted her to co-host, blending her classes with his expertise. The proposition was enticing, yet buried beneath enthusiasm was a river of anxiety. Was she truly ready to share the spotlight, particularly with someone who had always strived to outshine her? As she mulled over the invitation, she felt her heart race. This could cement her position in the culinary community, but it also meant navigating a relationship fraught with competitive tension. Would this be a partnership that elevated her, or a trap that distracted her from her true vision? The desire to say yes felt immense, yet fear gripped her. Margaret leaned back against her kitchen counter, the weight of her decisions pressing down like an unseen force. She needed to talk this out, and Jake emerged in her mind as the ideal sounding board. He had been supportive of every venture she pursued, and perhaps his perspective might illuminate a path forward. "Jake, could you come here for a second?" she called, her voice wavering slightly. When he entered, his expression was a mixture of curiosity and concern, sensing her uncertainty. "Is everything okay?" he asked as he approached. Margaret elaborated on Ian's proposal, outlining both its appeal and the apprehensions clawing at her mind. "Part of me wants to seize this opportunity, but the other part of me doubts if I can maintain my authenticity. I don't want our collaboration to overshadow my classes or the blog." Jake considered her words carefully. "Partnerships can amplify your voice if you choose the right people. But you have to set the terms, make sure they align with your vision. This can be a powerful combination or just a recipe for chaos." His confidence resonated deeply within her. She realized she had been viewing potential collaboration as a loss of control rather than an opportunity for growth. It was a massive shift in her mindset, redefining collaboration from an anxiety-inducing challenge to a shared journey focused on mutual growth. With newfound determination, she decided to draft a response to Ian, placing her conditions clearly before him. She would be upfront about her commitments and expectations, setting boundaries that would safeguard her identity while remaining open to collaboration. This was a chance to grow alongside fellow professionals, not just compete with them. The next hours were infused with creativity and a surge of purpose. Margaret poured herself into the preparation of her reply, crafting it carefully. She felt empowered. This was not simply a reaction to fear, but a proactive choice centered around her aspirations. With each word, she defined her parameters, insisting on creative autonomy while offering to let Ian influence the content. She expressed respect for his skills, emphasizing that collaboration was the confluence of different strengths. As she hit send, a wave of exhilaration coursed through her. It felt exhilarating to take a role not only as a participant in the culinary world, but as someone who could shape its narrative. This moment marked a critical step in her development, recognizing that collaboration did not equate to losing individuality. Later that evening, as she prepared for her cooking class, the prospect of Ian's response lingered. Would he embrace her conditions, or would this lead to an uncomfortable standoff? The uncertainty brushed against her resolve like a gust of wind. While a sense of security enveloped her efforts in the classroom, the outside world loomed large, hinting at challenges she was yet to fully navigate. Just as she began setting out ingredients for the night's lesson, her phone chimed again. It was a notification. Ian had responded swiftly. The message preview flashed across the screen, but its contents were just out of reach. Could this be the beginning of a new journey? Or would it bring complexities that would test her commitment to her own vision? With her pulse quickening, she reminded herself of the mantra she'd begun to adopt. Growth lay in the discomfort, and she had just glimpsed the precipice of transformation. The secret lay in boldness, in the willingness to embrace not only the flavors of her ambitions, but the potential bitterness of conflict as well. Margaret hesitated, her heart racing as she opened Ian's message. She had experienced moments of anxiety before, but this felt different, charged with the unresolved tension of their past rivalry. The message unfurled on her screen, each word scrutinized with a mix of hope and apprehension. Ian accepted her conditions. He appreciated her perspective and expressed excitement about the collaboration. Yet, within the swift endorsement, a hint of a challenge lingered. He wanted to frame the videos around their competition-styled approach, showcasing their skills in a live cooking duel format. A chill ran through her. Immediately, her mind whirred, grappling with the implications of this new angle. Was this really the right direction? She envisioned cooking in a competitive environment, not just for fun, but for the scrutiny of an audience. Perhaps a format centered on rivalry would stoke the flames of their old dynamic, leading to a fresh wave of excitement. However, it also threatened to undermine her original goal, connecting with novice cooks and offering them authentic, supportive guidance. Margaret sighed, glancing around her kitchen, a sanctuary that had always inspired her to create rather than compete. This collaboration could showcase her abilities, but it also risked isolating her audience, who merely sought guidance. Her fingers hovered over the phone. Engaging Ian in this duel-style format could become sensational, drawing viewers in, but at what cost? A confrontation between their culinary styles swirled before her mind's eye. Would it overshadow the instructional essence she valued in her own classes? She needed clarity. Restlessness surged as she prepared for her cooking class. The ingredients were laid out beautifully, but her heart was still tethered to Ian's message. She tried to focus on the lesson plan, highlighting simple techniques for making classic sauces. But her thoughts kept drifting back to Ian's proposal. What if she countered with a hybrid approach, one that allowed their competitive spirit to shine through, yet still kept the emphasis on cooking education? "Margaret, are you okay?" Jake's voice broke through her whirlwind of thoughts. He leaned against the doorframe, his presence instantly grounding her. Turning to him, she took a breath and shared Ian's latest ideas. The concern on Jake's face mirrored the storm of emotions brewing inside her. "What do you think about the competitive twist?" she asked, seeking his perspective. Jake crossed his arms, mulling it over. "It sounds a lot like the old you, the ambitious, driven person that relished competition. But isn't that also the fuel for what you truly want to do? Understanding your audience should come first. How will they connect with that?" His words resonated with her. While the competition could energize the project, she couldn't lose sight of why she was pursuing this collaboration in the first place. Perhaps she could indeed incorporate a dual format, but add layers of narrative, illuminating the techniques and the rationale behind choices they made in each dish. The competitive energy would serve as a fun backdrop, rather than the sole focus. Suddenly, a burst of resolve ignited within her. She could frame their rivalry not as a battle to win, but as an opportunity to teach. Margaret felt her creative gears turning again, envisioning how to blend competition with mentorship. A fresh approach that could elevate both her work and Ian's. With renewed purpose, she pulled out her phone and began drafting a counter-response. This wasn't about dominating the culinary narrative, but rather contributing to it innovatively while staying true to her identity. As her fingers danced across the screen, the anxiety that had gripped her began to ebb, replaced by excitement. But just as she finalized her message, another notification lit up her phone, a video clip from Ian, a short teaser of his latest food challenge. As she pressed play, dread and intrigue warred within her. Watching Ian showcase his culinary prowess, she couldn't shake the thought, was she ready to engage in this arena? This collaboration was about more than just merging content. It was about confronting old dynamics. She sent her message, articulating her vision, but the gnawing thought remained. Could she maintain her trajectory while stepping into this new role? As she flicked off her phone and returned to her class, the stakes felt higher than ever. The sweet aroma of simmering garlic filled the air, grounding her momentarily. Yet the thrill of Ian's challenge lingered, echoing a question that remained unanswered within her. Where would this pathway truly lead? She started her class, but the uncertainty whispered in her ear, hinting that nothing was stable anymore. Just how much was she willing to risk? The class began, but she knew one thing. Her answer would reveal the measure of her growth, and the imminent clash would be one not just between cooks, but within herself. Would she embrace the uncertainty to forge a new identity in this culinary arena? Margaret entered the large kitchen the next day with a mix of determination and anxiety, her senses brimming with anticipation. The class had begun, and the energy pulsed through the air like the rising dough she was kneading. Not only a lesson in health, but a symbol of connection, creativity, and resilience. Today was an opportunity to showcase her evolving relationship with cooking, a representation not just of flavors, but a narrative seasoned with personal growth. As her diverse participants arrived, Margaret took a deep breath, her heartbeat steadying with each familiar face. It was time for her to step forward, to demonstrate that change could bring excitement and discovery. "Welcome," she greeted, her voice rich with optimism. "Today, we're reinventing classic comfort foods into healthier versions while still keeping true to our roots." The interaction began. Eyes bright with curiosity, they dove into chopping, stirring, and sharing stories as colorful as the ingredients being used. Margaret guided them through each step with an ease she hadn't fully recognized within herself until now. This was her domain, where she transformed fear into opportunity. The energy flowed freely, laughter mingling with the sounds of sizzling pans. She felt the memories of her past collide with her aspirations, bridging her culinary history with a fresh vision. As they transitioned from one recipe to another, the kitchen vibrated with excitement. Margaret watched participants taste the dishes, their eyes lighting up in surprise. "This is delicious and healthy. Who knew?" one exclaimed with a grin. Each delighted reaction fueled her resolve. She was not only teaching, but belonging. With an increased confidence simmering inside her, she decided to address Ian's proposal during a lull in their meal prep. "I've been thinking about expanding my culinary reach and exploring some collaborations to incorporate even more ideas and creativity." The words hung in the air, pregnant with possibility. One participant leaned in, eager for insight. "Collaboration? Sounds exciting. But how do you keep your voice when working with someone else?" Margaret paused, feeling the weight of their inquiry. "It's about blending perspectives while staying true to your essence. I want to show everyone that competition doesn't mean conflict. Instead, it can foster creativity and growth." Encouraged by the discussion, Margaret felt her thoughts gel into a clear narrative. She had arrived at a transformative moment where she could merge past and future. Inspired by her class, she pulled out her phone and texted Ian, outlining her vision for their collaboration. "Let's harness our rivalry to teach skills instead of just competing. We can bring innovation to the public while emphasizing the joy of cooking." The exhilaration of the moment flooded through her, knowing she was presenting not just food, but a new opportunity for growth, for herself, and for the audience they would ultimately attract. Later that evening, as she reflected on class discussions, Margaret felt a renewed sense of self. She was exhilarated by her ability to adapt, create, and teach. Each interaction had solidified her understanding of the duality of her ambitions, fostering connection through health and engaging with challenges holistically. The next morning, intent on maintaining the momentum, she awoke early, circling back to her notes and cooking class insights. She reviewed Ian's commitments, envisioning the perfect blend of their culinary styles. She responded to his proposal with clarity and assertiveness, sharing her excitement for collaboration that would serve to uplift others. Her phone chimed as Ian replied almost immediately, "I love your approach. Let's make this happen." His enthusiasm felt like a validation, a sign that both dreams could harmonize. Margaret couldn't suppress her smile. She had battled her fears only to find common ground, reinforcing her understanding of collaboration as a powerful tool for transformation. Each decision illustrated her growth, evolving from the hesitation that once defined her into a confident leader carving her path in both cooking and life. In the weeks that followed, Margaret not only launched her first class, but began filming segments with Ian. The vibrant energy of their collaboration showcased differing styles, techniques, and philosophies, ultimately enriching the audience's understanding of food preparation and inspiration. Each video reflected not just culinary prowess, but the dual narratives of past and present, embracing the art of cooking alongside the journey of self-discovery. She felt a renewed sense of belonging as their audience grew, her sincerity resonating with viewers who shared their own culinary challenges and triumphs. Through it all, Margaret emerged transformed, stronger and more aware of her abilities, confident in her voice, and enthusiastic about her evolving cooking philosophy. In the final moments of her last video shoot, as laughter echoed through the kitchen, she turned to Ian, his presence now a cherished addition to her culinary journey. "We did it!" she exclaimed, realization washing over her. She had conquered her fears and in the process had connected authentically with herself, her audience, and her legacy. From a place of uncertainty to solid confidence, Margaret had transformed not just her cooking, but how she approached every aspect of her life. She was not merely sharing recipes anymore. She was writing a narrative of resilience, one delicious dish at a time. Now more than ever, she recognized change could be beautiful. And as she looked at the camera, she smiled brightly, ready to share her next chapter, one where food and family intertwined, balanced on the principles of health, love, and growth. You need to subscribe now to keep up with Margaret's incredible journey and not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to support the algorithm and help others discover this transformative content. Comment below with your reactions and theories about this remarkable ending and share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to share. Take action now.